members of this panel that will be looking at local assembly and manufacturing within our country. So allow us to have Ms. Monica from PGL, that is Power Governance Limited. She's a CEO of Power Governance Limited. Then we'll invite, let's put our hands together as she comes all the way. Thank you. If I may borrow what we did yesterday, it will be good for us to clap for each and every person until they get here to the podium. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a seat. We also have Rachel Tiribi from KVM, that's Kenya Vehicle Manufacturers. She's in charge of the quality department. Then also allow me to invite Moses Nderitu from Basigo, the managing director. Moses, please. Although he's coming here under IMAC, but we can be able to mix up the two, no problem. Let's give him a hand until he comes. Then we have Mr. Ashit Shah from the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, who is board director and of the automotive sector. Mr. Ashit, please welcome. Thank you so much. Let's give him a hand until he gets to the stage. Lastly, we have Mr. Gideon Oele. I don't know that he's in the room. I've not managed to meet him, representing the Trade Ministry. Okay, we seem not to have him here, so we'll proceed with the members that are present. Oh, okay, please come, Mr. Secretary. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Actually, thank you so much. So at least we get someone to represent the government and answer some of our questions. I would like us to proceed. Yes, thank you so much. I think it's the first panel with a good representation of the ladies. And interestingly, they're seated next to me, so I feel good. We are meeting the third gender rule. All right, thank you so much. We'll proceed with our discussion. So we are looking at local assembly and manufacturing within the country. And I think it's something the PS has really stressed on, that as a country, for us to really move ahead, that is an area we really need to focus. We need to get ourselves from just being given fish to actually fishing and getting the fish we want. So that if you want tilapia, you get your tilapia. If you want omena, you get your omena, and whatever it is that suits you. All right? So maybe to start us off, it will be good for us to really understand from my panelists. I'll give them an opportunity just to introduce themselves briefly to get to know what it is they do, and then we'll be able to proceed with our discussion. So I'll start with the one right next to me. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Are you able to hear me clearly? Wonderful. My name is Monica Thukumwema, and I am the CEO of Power Governance Limited. We are a mobility solutions provider in the country. And what that does in line with manufacture is that we are part of the value chain. We are the ones who provide localized solutions as part of the value chain. So in short, we provide telematics solutions. We are in the business of doing charging infrastructure as well, and much more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll move on to Rachel.
Good morning. My name is Rachel. I head a quality department at Kenya Vehicle Manufacturers. Kenya Vehicle Manufacturers is an assembly plant in Kenya. We are a multi-brand assembler. And as of last week, we were very excited to launch Basigo as one of the EVs models we are doing. And I'm excited to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. We'll move on to Moses.
Good morning. Is it working? Yeah. Good morning. I introduced myself earlier as Moses Nderitu, but I'm in this panel as the Vice President of the Electric Mobility Association of Kenya, which is a lobby group and industry association for people who are in electric mobility. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Moses. We move on to Mr. Ashit.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah. My name is Ashit Shah. I'm a board member at Kenya Association of Manufacturers. We represent 14 sectors in the manufacturing sector. We have more than 1,200 members. I also chair the automotive sector at CAM. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Secretary.
Yes, good morning. My name is Lobi Masharia. I'm the Secretary Industrialization in the State Department for Industry. And I think the PS has already set the pace in terms of what we really need. And I think we can engage more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. And thank you to all of us for introducing ourselves and really telling the audience what it is we do from where we come from. And I think in a short while as we proceed, we'll be able to see the relevance of each of them in this particular panel. So beginning as what will be to find out, a lot has been said by the PS and locally when you hear people talk about assembly and manufacturing, they mention very many things. But I think it will be good for us to hear from our panelists. What are the various challenges within the assembly, or rather the local assembly and manufacturing sector, and especially with our focus on electric vehicles within the country? And as they tell us the challenges, it will also be good to tell us also what are the opportunities, so that we are not so much fixated on what it is we can't do or that is hindering us to do what we need to do, but also at what opportunities are there for us to be able to progress as a country. So I'll begin with my immediate right. Madam Monica, please.
All right. Thank you, Oscar, for that question. If I would begin with a very obvious challenge is awareness. I think awareness serves as a very important element in the entire conversation of e-mobility. And currently the country is, this conversation almost seems like it's just a high-level conversation or a national-level conversation, but it hasn't trickled down to the kawaida buda person. So when I talk about awareness, it has a direct impact towards our manufacturing or assembly, because as we all are aware, if we are to do any assembly or local manufacture, then it means we have to have demand. The laws of demand and supply have to come in place. So if people are not aware that this is actually the future and this is where we are going, then chances are manufacturers and assemblers will struggle to have orders and enjoy economies of scale and all that. Speaking as an infrastructure provider for charging, one of the main challenges that we have encompassed is actually lack of the infrastructure itself. As much as Kenya Power and generally Kenya as a country is a global leader in terms of green energy, we still struggle with issues to do with infrastructure. And what do I mean by that? As a charging infrastructure provider, we have to do mapping for the areas where we're going to set up chargers. And you realize some areas they're not compatible with what we call DC chargers, that is the fast charging stations. So before you actually even get maybe Kenya Power to put up either a new transformer or increase the load, it takes long, it is frustrating. And those are some of the challenges that we are encompassing as a service provider in the industry. Should I continue or can I leave the rest?
You can give us one or two opportunities available.
Okay, opportunities. As a player in the value chain, one of the obvious opportunities is job creation. I mean, and not just job creation because we now have factories that are producing or assembling e-mobility, but job creation across the value chain. So job creation for the manufacturer who is now employing probably day and night, job creation for us who are in the support in terms of if we are to have e-telematics in the buses or in the bikes, then it means even for me as a vendor, I get to employ more people. And last but not least, value addition and job creation even to the end user. The pesa mkononi kind of vibe that we've been talking about, where now the riders have more access to finances, they have opportunities to create employment even amongst themselves, and so on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll proceed to Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So for me as an assembler, I can only assemble what I'm provided for by the local assembly partner or dealer. So of course, one of the issues is the volumes. Do we have enough volumes for me as an assembler to be able to assemble? And that can only be answered, is there a market for the dealer or for the local assembler for them to be able to sell their product? Because it is going to be hard for me to have a dedicated line if there are really no volumes for me to assemble. Another challenge is, of course, on skills. Because when we did the SOP, we heavily relied on the OEM or the local partner for the training and knowledge of transfer. So probably that is an issue we really need to discuss, and maybe we can attack it from the source and see how we can integrate the issue of skills, that issue of skills gap, and see how we can just integrate that into programs, into our local universities and TVETs, because currently it is either I get someone who has done automotive engineering or electrical engineering, and then I have to spend, of course, time and money to retrain them and align them as per the manufacturers or OEMs requirements, assembly requirements. The other one is on the local content. So if we can have an honest discussion, we need to ask ourselves the breakdown of the local content if we are talking about EV assembly. So what percentage do we have as local content? So that's also another challenge. Could it be, like she said, maybe it's the awareness from the manufacturers of the local content? Could it be that probably it's an issue of expense and finances? So I think that's something also we find as a challenge for us as assemblers. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Maybe add one opportunity so that I don't seem to be focusing so much on the negatives.
Of course, one opportunity is that there's definitely a room, like the PS said, for Kenya to really venture into EV mobility. It's just that we really need to be intentional about it, create awareness, and really have capacity building. Okay, really provide capacity building in order to enable that. That probably can only be done through initiatives, through policy development, which now we can anchor them into law to really try and guide EV adoption and assembly in Kenya.
Okay, thank you so much, Rachel. Mr. Moses, we have a lot of companies venturing into the EV space, and speaking from EMAC perspective as well as Basigo. What are the challenges that hello? Okay, what are the challenges that are there that have made not so many of them really venture into this local assembly and manufacturing? Thank you. As well as the opportunities that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you, Oscar. I'll break and let's start with the opportunities. I think if you want to look at opportunity, during the break, go upstairs in the exhibition hall. If you remember where we were last year in the similar conference, I think we were maybe less than 5 or maybe 10 exhibitors. But today, there is a very, very healthy mix of exhibitors. And that just shows you the opportunity that is available on e-mobility. And the fact that there is a lot of players, both local and foreign, who are looking at that opportunity and are not really focusing. The challenge is showing them that there is something there, there's an opportunity. And the biggest opportunity we've been told over and over again is the fact that we've got, one, renewable energy and in abundance. So that is a great opportunity for us to, for my members at EMAC are looking at, that's what we are looking at, Basigo. But that said and done, are there some challenges? Yes, there are. I think the biggest challenge, and if you walk around there, you'll find people like Mazi Mobility. They're actually been working very hard for the last 3 years to be able to get the right product. So for them to get to a point whereby they can start doing local manufacturing, you need a certain level of, if it's minimum quantity order. So if I'm going to a local, to a part supplier locally, how many parts can I order? But if I'm still, we are saying there's 4,000 EVs. Out of those 4,000, 2,500 are bicycles. So the EV industry is at infancy stage. So at this point, sometimes our biggest challenge is we feel that, yes, we are wholly committed to local manufacturing, to adding value locally, but at the point where we are playing with the rules of the Form 4s while we're in Standard 1, on grade 1. So that is actually our biggest challenge. But then also when we talk about, and my sister brought it up, where do we get these local components? Well, most of the vehicles, or most of the most of the motorcycles, the bicycles, even us in buses, we are still just beyond prototype, if not at prototype. So you cannot commit wholly towards giving an order of the local components. So I think the biggest challenge is to be able to navigate this infancy stage, get to a point whereby we are on a slightly solid ground, and then we can be able to scale. And I think that is a commitment from all the e-mobility companies that fall under EMAC.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Moses. Hello. Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to Mr. Ashit, representing Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Based on your experiences within the members of your association, and looking at specifically e-mobility in this case, what are the challenges that you can point out as some of your members having experienced in the e-mobility space, local assembly, as well as manufacturing? And you could also probably also add an opportunity that you can think of that can be tapped into to help grow the space. Thank you.
Thank you. So some of the challenges represented with the e-mobility in Kenya are, number one, I think driving demand. And driving demand to create mass where we can locally assemble, we can locally manufacture parts, and probably be more competitive, as my brother here, Moses, has said, is, I think first we need to look at when all the assemblers are at the same level playing field, okay? So that whatever policies and incentives we have are same and applicable to everybody. Not that some companies are given exemptions, the others are not. This will basically, we have double standards on the same. And I think that will basically bring down the whole industry, and some people will have advantage over the others. The other challenge I think we have is the cost, right, to drive demand. How does all the stakeholders here come up with a financing option? We've heard from Moses' presentation, the cost is a big, huge factor. So how do we have incentives and policies where we give certain preference to e-mobility in terms of cost, interest rates, or maybe longer term payment plans, right? 8 to 10 years to drive the demand. And I'm sure if we do that, then we should be able to look at some of the challenges and overcome the mass production and demand on the same. The other challenge I think we have is Kenya has been focusing mainly on ICE assembly plants and all that. How do we adapt the current assembly plants to assemble and manufacture the EVs? Noting that the powertrain and the drivetrain, meaning, okay, to some of us who don't know what powertrain and drivetrain is, the engine and gearbox is almostly all imported from outside within the CKD. And in the e-mobility, we replace that with the motor and the gearbox and what drives the vehicle. The rest of the stuff, 80% of the stuff is more or less the same. So if you look at some of the models which are upstairs in the exhibition, like the pickups, I mean, congratulations to Basico, they've come up phenomenal in locally assembling the buses here. I mean, it's a milestone for Kenya, right? And it's a great achievement for Kenya. And I think about 40% of the stuff is actually locally sourced, right? So if Basico can do that, why can we not do that with the others? right? Where we have an assembly plant with Isuzu, with AVA, with KVM, where we can assemble the pickups here and get the drivetrains and powertrains from outside. We also need to look at certain opportunities in terms of how can other components be made locally, right? For assembly as well as after sales, right? And not focusing too much on assembly while there's going to be certain products which are going to be used as after sales on servicing the vehicles once they've been sold. Infrastructure, I think we've mentioned, somebody's mentioned that we don't have enough infrastructure and power. How do we partner with Kenya Power and Lighting to create and assemble and manufacture infrastructure for charging stations and battery swapping within Kenya? Why should we import from outside, right? If we all put our heads together, I'm sure we can develop huge opportunities and supply whatever is needed. What we should be asking ourselves, how as Kenya do we champion the e-mobility and supply to the rest of Africa, whether it's CKD or fully built units to the rest of Africa? The market is already there. Africa's demand of vehicles per year is about 4 million vehicles, new and second-hand, right? How do we look at servicing or supplying that African demand, right? And I think as Kenya, we've done excellent in looking at e-mobility and driving this agenda. If we look at whatever we have all done with government, with Kenya Power, with the private sector, on having the policy out, I mean, a lot of other countries have not even reached there. Yeah, so I think we have got a lot to do. We have done a lot, and I think the future is good. There is a huge opportunity in the whole sector. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Hashid. We move to the PS, to the Secretary, Mr. Macharia. The PS mentioned a lot of things regarding our country and Africa in general. Are there any other challenges you could point out that are probably hindering us from really rolling out a lot of local assembly and manufacturing, and with a keen focus also on e-mobility? Thank you.
Thank you. I think my fellow panelists have mentioned most of the challenges, but I'll add one or two. Of course, I think the one that has been said is about that critical mass of uptakers of the e-vehicles. And I think as Kenyans, we are already complaining of high fuel costs, and therefore I imagine there is already a population there who should be able to take up these e-vehicles. I think the other one that Ashita has also mentioned is on issues of enabling policies and legislation. Moses has also alluded to it. And I can confirm as a ministry, as a State Department, we are working on an automotive, actually reviewing an automotive policy, which was passed in 2022. But of course, probably it had not taken in the issues, the emerging issues on e-mobility. I can also confirm that we are also working on an automotive bill. It's currently at the AG's office for that legal input, and it is going to try to address the creation of that level playing field that Moses and Ashita are speaking about. The other challenge we already have had is about the issues of the batteries that they use. It's not the normal run-of-the-mill batteries that we are already getting locally, and yet when it comes to taxation, they have to bring them from out, but the taxation is so high because it's lumped together with the other ordinary batteries, which we have capacity to produce. And therefore, in terms of protecting that local industry, we put a very high tax on those batteries. This is something we're having a conversation, even at the EAC level, because it may require what we call a tariff split to separate the lithium batteries from the ordinary batteries. In terms of opportunities, I think the space of assembly is very wide. Secondly, what Ashita has also alluded to, the issues of auto parts. Under the ICE, that is the ones that are using petrol-based products, we had already identified, for example, for motorcycles, how many parts cannot be imported. They must be made locally. So that is a conversation we are having with the industry to see how best to promote that issues of local content. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, having looked at the challenges and the opportunities, I think it will also be important to find out what, and this is especially for IMAC and CAM, as well as government, that is from our Mr. Secretary, on what it is we are doing as you know, the different bodies, what it is we are doing to really address the various challenges and, that we have, so that we can really accelerate local assembly and manufacturing of electric vehicles within the country. So we'll start with the, Mr. Ashit. As CAM, what is it that you are doing to really address this in terms of either policies or any guidelines that you're putting in place, or any special requests that you're already making that will help really accelerate this particular sector?
Thank you. So one of the things which we have proposed to government is the assembly regulations, LN 84 and LN 112. When the first assembly regulations were done, we had not captured the EV space into the regulation. And we have given to government on about 1 year ago, I think, the amended assembly regulations which caters for the EVs, where all the challenges which, some of them which we've mentioned on the battery, on certain components which are not allowed in the CKD, where we do not manufacture them, are actually allowed in, so that we do not hurt the industry, but support the industry. So I think that is a big win if it is passed through. And we got all the stakeholders to make sure we get input from them to develop and amend that assembly regulation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Mr. Nderitu, what is IMAC doing?
Well, number one is we have, as an industry, we have then decided to have our own voice, and we can then speak directly. And the reason why we are doing this is so that we can be heard. I think we, at the e-mobility space, we feel that sometimes we are silenced by what we'd call the legacy industries. As if you look at some of the assembly lines have been around for 50 years. Electric vehicles have been assembled. I think Rome is the first one to assemble, and that's within the last 3 years. So what, as IMAC, we're doing is, while working with other organizations like KAM, and working very closely with the Ministry of Industrialization, and now with the e-mobility task force, is to try and create a space for e-mobility directly, so that we are not looking, a lot of times it's pitted as this ICE versus EV. It's an alternative, and we feel that this is an industry that can give Kenyans an alternative way of moving, but it also requires, as Ashit said, you need to do something to spur growth or to spur demand. I can tell you, if you go to my village in Nyeri, there is no demand for KFC. But if you then allow a KFC to open in Nyeri, maybe there might be some demand coming up after that. So we are working very hard to actually spur demand. I think what you can see with the numbers, what you can see from, if you look year on year, what the growth, especially in the two-wheeler sector, yes, we agree that there's parts that are already gazetted already that you have to buy locally. But those are for bikes that have been assembled in this country for the last 10 years. So for bikes that is beginning, I've seen auto parks upstairs. They're just introducing their first bike. So what is their order? How many bikes can they assemble locally, economically? We're already dealing with an issue of a high upfront cost. And then we have to conform. So all we've been asking for is for a bit of if you look at even the white paper we launched yesterday as IMAC, we're saying, can we get an accommodation of between 2 and 3 years to let us spur growth, bring in some of these prototypes so that people start, so that awareness that is not there with the people. So that we can also move out of Nairobi, because e-mobility right now is a Nairobi and Mombasa issue. Yet a lot of the, for example, two-wheelers, a big market is Western Kenya. When is it going to get there? And that, how people in Western Kenya use motorcycles and how we use them in Nairobi is very different. So the prototype or the bike that you want to be able to work in different markets, or the vehicle you want to work in different markets, you must have go through a certain product life cycle. But if you then create a situation whereby, as Ashit says, that from day one, I must do what Isuzu has been doing for the last 50 years. Then I am at a complete disadvantage, and I will never be able to grow the industry. So I think what we are advocating for is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to just go through this winning stage, and then you will start seeing the benefits, and the benefits to the power, you'll start seeing the benefits to foreign exchange, because as that grows, and even if you get to even 1% or 5%, you'll start seeing less pressure on our foreign exchange and all that. So I think that's what we're advocating for, but working within the existing. We're also making a lot of noise so that we can be included, and we made a lot of noise and we were included in the automotive bill. When it was done, it had nothing to do with e-mobility. Now we are there. So that is what we are trying to do. We have to stand up on rooftops and do the dance so that we can be noticed. Otherwise, we might end up, the Form 4s here might ignore us completely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Mr. Macharia. You've talked about automotive bill. You've also talked about the policy. Is there anything else as a ministry you are doing? And let's say maybe in terms of incentives. I think yesterday there was a presentation where the presenter was requesting for more or less, zero excise duties, zero VAT, and so on. I don't know if the government is still considering that, especially for the parts that are coming in, so that we can have maybe local assembly and manufacturing. Thank you.
So thank you. It is true what Moses is saying. This is like a newborn baby. It needs to be babysat, if I may use that word. It's an infant industry. And as a ministry, as government, we are alive to that. And of course, when you are coming into a space where there are others, there is need to have continuous conversations. I'm happy as a ministry, in fact, whenever we want to do anything that is touching on manufacturing, one of the major BMOs that we have to talk to are the CAMS, the chambers, and now EMAC, because we cannot do anything without input from them, because they are the doers. Us is to create that, what I would call enabling environment, business enabling environment for them to thrive. So we are having that conversation, and that's why we have alluded to the fact that we are looking at the automotive policy to try and accommodate the emerging issues, especially related to EV. We are doing the automotive bill, and I think during this conversation, the issue of incentives will have to come in. And when we talk incentives now, we also have other stakeholders, because sometimes when you are asking for tax exemption, zero rating, blah, blah, that now has to involve the National Treasury, because they also look at other things that, but as a ministry, we are ready to work with this, the associations. We are ready to support them, because for us, local assembly is about that issue of job creation, issues of technology transfer. Those are very important to the ministry. And like the PS said, it's manufacturing that will drive the economy of this country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much about that. I will move on to Rachel from KVM. You guys have been doing assembly for quite a while. And as has been mentioned by yourself, as well as Moses from Basigo, you launched an assembly plant for electric buses at your plant recently. And I think it will be good to give the audience some kind of assurance in terms of quality. That are we going to have similar quality of the products that are coming from that assembly line as compared to what has been imported? And maybe as you answer that, it might also be good to just take us briefly through the quality control process that you have for locally assembled or manufactured products. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I can confidently assure that the products that so far we have produced for EV, more so Basigo, that they are safe for use. This is because once they bring in the kits, they bring in kits that are type approved and tested. before they come to KVM. And now when they come to KVM, then we have to go through quality process, which normally starts at the receiving of the kits, where we check material quality and the kit integrity, because it is only at that point where we can decide, do we have issues that are affecting quality? And if there are issues, how far or how deep are the issues? Then we can decide, do we proceed with the assembly or do we stop? If do we stop, then there is a procedure on how to, we call it a UCR procedure on how then we can communicate with the OEM on how to replace the parts. If it's an issue that is really deep, that needs technical probably support, then there's also a procedure for that. So once the kits have been checked, confirmed, and now they are in line, we do have assembly processes that we have been provided for and guided by the OEM. This is through the use of assembly instructions, quality instructions that just basically tell us and guide us that this is what you're supposed to do, this is where you fit these parts. Then in terms of quality, we have quality gates along the stations in the assembly line. The quality gates are there just to confirm that we do not have a defect that is going to pass from one station to another. So after we are done with the inline quality checks, then we have the end-of-line checks. And then we proceed to the last stage. We call it buy-off or product audit, where we have certified product auditors who now act as the eyes of the customer. This is just basically for them just to go through and check and confirm that this product is okay, where they do static and dynamic checks. After that, then they put a green okay status just to confirm that now this unit is ready and we hand over to the customer. So that is the quality checks that we do for both EV and also for the other models. And also I can confirm so far for the units that we have assembled, maybe Moses can confirm that we have not received any campaign management or issues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe just still on you. Yesterday when I came in, there was a truck out there by Jack, and what I'll call the batteries were more or less a bit exposed to the cables. Well, when I use the word exposed, I don't mean really per se naked, but it's something you can be able to touch. You know, the cables are things you can be able to touch. And one of my colleagues, being an electrical engineer, raised the question that in the event of now passing through the rainwaters that are there right now in Nairobi, what assurance do people have that they'll not be electrocuted or something like that? Is that one of the checks you people do for EVs in this case? Thank you.
I may really not want to get into the technical aspect of that, but like I said, they will only bring in kits that have been approved and tested. And the issue of electrocution, I really don't think that is an issue. So long as the guidelines that you've been given, you adhere to that. In fact, while we are assembling, we've not really had an issue on electrocution. Maybe Moses would want to speak more on that.
Moses, please.
Maybe just assure you that our buses went through El Nino. Yeah. Yesterday, we know what happened, and we've been going through. But on a serious note, if you look at the vehicle you've mentioned, all the wires in orange, that's high voltage, very well insulated. There's certain standards on that, and they're very high standards. The battery is actually completely sealed, and so all you see is that. So there's zero risk. And we are now almost 2 million kilometers with electric vehicles. We've never had a battery issue or anything to do with leakage of power. So I would, it's an assurance we do give. And it's also something that is highly audited by the OEMs who we are assembling their vehicles, because it's their intellectual property. But lastly, I'd also like to say that with the buses the two buses that are now operating in Nairobi that have come from KVM and all the other ones that are going to be coming thereafter, actually there is, when you look at them on face value, there is no difference between those buses and what we imported. Yeah? In fact, zero difference. In fact, the buses that we've actually locally assembled are more comfortable because we then use air suspension, and what we had imported were the leaf spring, which comes from the horse-drawn carriage. So with this air suspension, these buses are actually much better. And then we are taking it further, and sitting here, Monica will be then providing, we've said she can provide telematics for one of the buses we are building, so that we can, instead of bringing telematics from outside, we are then looking what's available locally, and that then continues to create that value chain. So yes, much, I would say much better. And last but not least in that, and the owners who already bought the buses can go to KVM. So yesterday, as we were here, one of the people whose bus has been built showed up at KVM with his color palette because he knows where his bus is being built. So there's a reason to do local manufacturing because every bus that we're actually building already has been allocated to an owner. And we could not do that if we're importing.
Okay, thank you so much. You've spoken of Monica and telematics. Monica, the floor is yours. Tell us how telematics and electric vehicles come together and support local assembly and manufacturing.
Thank you for that. So how we are integrating our products to the system is telematics in itself is data. So we are providing products that are able to give data that would then help the fleet managers operate efficiently. And what we do as PGL is that we offer telematics from speed management solutions. I can confidently say that we are the only company that can limit an electric bus or an electric vehicle. We can provide real-time monitoring, battery management. All this telematics can be provided locally. And what that does is it allows for localization and customization. If I would take an example of Basigo, if you look at their fleet in Kenya, in the Kenyan market, and their fleet in, say, Rwanda don't have a policy of speed management, for example. So how do we come in then? We come in to support Basigo so that ultimately their customer experience is different and better because they don't have to now work with the government or go through the hurdles of the government to have their products approved and all that. So that's how we come in. Secondly, not just to mention about telematics, we're very passionate about road safety, and I'll just throw it in there. And one of the things that we are leveraging on is things such as the digital bus displays, These are things we've seen in other countries, and these are some of the things we want to implement here in our country. Can you imagine a situation where our transport is not just for us who are here, but is inclusive for everyone? So what the digital bus signages do is that they are able to, it's audiovisual, so they can be able to communicate to the passengers. If you have a passenger who has a hearing aid, they can see where they are going, they can see the location of where they are. If you have a passenger who has visual impairment, they can hear, and that is now driving towards not just trying to reduce the carbon, but we're trying to drive an agenda of a more inclusive transport system. And just to add on to that, recently I entered a Basigo and it had priority seating, as in, isn't that not something we want to see going forward? Can those be cultural things that can be implemented? And not just to electric buses, but electric buses can be a pathway to introducing them even to the ICE vehicles. So that now women are more included. You can have a priority seating for a disabled person, and these electric buses are coming to change the conversation completely. Talking about things like now for the boda sector, where we provide swaps facilities and charging facilities for bodas. I like the fact that with electric mobility, there's a drive towards safety for one reason or the other. And everyone who is owning an electric bike somehow has a helmet for himself and for the rider. And so these are small things that might not be visible in the carbon conversation, but have a very direct impact on our transport situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Monica. Another question I'd like to ask our panelists, especially CAM, as well as IMAC. This is a new space, and for the ICE vehicles, most people have what I'll call, fundi wangu wa gari, fundi wangu wa electrical, fundi wangu wa, all that. Apart from, of course, the well-known companies that deal with the vehicle repair and maintenance. So I don't know that there's anything you're doing in terms of training, not just for the ones that are actually building or assembling these vehicles, but also for the ones that will be conducting a service or these vehicles. That in the event that you are driving a vehicle and you get on a problem and it's an EV, there are some people somewhere you can actually reach out to who are well-trained, they are certified, and they can be able to attend to any issue affecting your EV. So we'll start with Moses and then Mr. Shah.
Thank you, Oscar. So for all our EMAC members who are actually bringing vehicles, one of the first things is they're having to set up their own training modules, and also over and above that, must be able to repair the vehicle. So if you go to any of the display upstairs, they will tell you how they deal with issues of batteries, how they, if the case, for example, Ampersand build their own batteries. So if there's an issue with the battery, they can actually repair the battery. Us at Basigo, we have our own fully fledged workshop where we can actually do major repairs. But then we're taking it one step further. So there are certain repairs that we don't need to do. So for example, when you want to do wheel balancing, you want to do